Hello and welcome to another Substance on Substance. I'm Phil Graham, partner at Harneys and head of the economic substance analysis here in our law firm. I'm joined again today by Josh Mangeot, one of our true experts in this arena. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
We wanted to touch on interesting developments that have come over the last week or so. Firstly, there was an announcement by BVI Finance on the 12th of July. There are a variety of points to touch on that, but I think let's touch on the two major ones. The first one was in and around some timing, and that was really trying to address the confusion around the extension to 1st of October that came out, and they have tried to obviously clarify that position. And the second one was a classification around sort of the RA obligations that they may have in this world going forward. Did you want to sort of touch on both of those, Josh?
Sure. So, as you say, the first part of the update is just touching on the detail of the compliance financial periods. The only change to timing is actually very narrow, and it's only relevant to some previously exempt persons where they have relevant activities who are going to be subject to new enhanced reporting requirements under the BOS legislation. For everybody else, there's all BVI registered companies and relevant limited partnerships that have legal personality. They are now in their first financial period. That either started from when they were formed, if it was this year, or if it was pre-2019, then from the 30th of June this year. No real change there, and we've discussed that in a previous session. The second part of BVI Finance's update was more interesting, and it made reference to how the ITA, BVI International Tax Authority, will exercise its investigation powers for the first financial period. And as we discussed previously, the ITA is saying that entities' classifications, which they should already have done by now, should be formalised in such detail as will allow the ITA to make a determination of compliance or non-compliance under the economic substance legislation. And also the ITA has said that it expects that registered agents in the BVI are going to retain the relevant details and documentation to enable the ITA to perform its investigative function under the Act. And the BVI Finance update makes reference to specific sections of the legislation, the ITA's power to require any information that it reasonably requires to perform its functions under the Act, to require any person, that's very broad, to provide such documents as it may reasonably require for that function. And then also finally, the criminal offence is created by the Act where a person fails to provide that information either without a reasonable excuse or intentionally provides false information. So that is definitely of interest to BVI registered agents.
I agree with you, and we have a lot of registered agents who got in contact with us about that. I think they were slightly taken aback that clearly there was going to be this obligation to have some of this information on their files. I think secondary to that, to us it wasn't just registered agents that might be affected by this. It's feasible that other intermediaries, other sort of CSPs who work with BVI companies, and particularly sort of professional directors or other fiduciary service providers, might also want to take note.
Yeah, that's right. If you look at the ITA's draft guidance in the draft code that was published on the 22nd of April, they noted that there's no restriction on the persons that they can contact for an investigation, and this does include people who are not necessarily employed by the entity. That picks up service providers either within or outside the jurisdiction, potentially. The reason they might look at a registered agent is they might be the entity that's expected to have the relevant information within the BVI, and the ITA is clearly pointing to that and saying that they're going to look at what the RA has on file. They may also contact directors or other fiduciary services providers. That's particularly relevant to people that provide professional directors, fiduciary services. So these types of people need to understand what the activities of their companies are and how they may be affected. The ITA's guidance is saying that they want that classification to be formalised in sufficient detail. So we think that includes not only legal advice, but also things like detailed board resolutions or minutes, which can be produced by lawyers or other professional services providers and then just presented to the ITA if it raises an investigation. And on that, from a director's perspective, the benefit of a formal memo of legal advice, of course, is that the directors can rely generally on expert advice when they're discharging their director's duties under the BVI Business Companies Act, as long as they're acting in good faith and they've made proper inquiry and they don't have any actual knowledge that relying on that advice is not justified. So I think the ITA's guidance is instructive, and it shouldn't be scary. The solutions are available out there for directors to do this.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much.